Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning to you all. It's October 6th, and I'm in a dreary Green Bay, Wisconsin. My dog is chewing on a plastic bottle. I hope you don't hear that. And an awful lot to talk about, so I guess we better just jump right in. I want to share some exciting news about the next show, which is Monday. It will be Monday. I have as my guest Claire Van Kampen, who is an acclaimed London composer and writer and director, and her husband, whose name you might know more perhaps than hers, the Academy Award-winning actor Mark Rylance, who won his Academy Award for a movie called Bridge of Spies that he made. Also in that movie was Tom Hanks, I think, had a starring role. Mark Rylance is and his wife are in Pittsburgh because she is directing and has been really intimately involved in Pittsburgh's own Quantum Theater's newest production, which premieres tomorrow at the Byam Theater. Excuse me. And I'm sure that we will talk some about that. It involves extraordinary music. There are people in the cast with Grammy Awards, and it's really mind-blowing what Quantum has done with this. And so, and getting her to come in specifically to direct is a real coup. So it is somewhat operatic. Chatham Baroque is involved in it as well, so it is an opera. Quantum Theater does such amazing work, and often that work is presented in not normal theatrical settings. I've been to Quantum productions in abandoned warehouses and outdoors. This is going to be more traditional in that it is at the Byam Theater. But Mark Rylance is very much involved fascinated, and I might have mentioned this before. He's working on a movie in collaboration with Steven Spielberg about the Homestead Steel Strike, which is fascinating since Mark Rylance is a Brit, but he was here to make a movie some years back and got fascinated with Pittsburgh labor history. And he's got the kind of connections that can get Steven Spielberg on board. And so I'm very excited about the fact that they will, and I believe it's a made-for-television movie called The Battle for Homestead. And so if all goes well on Monday, we'll be talking to Mark Rylance about the Battle for Homestead, and also with Claire Van Kampen. I guess they're a power couple about Quantum Theater's production, which has a name that I'm not sure I know how to pronounce. It's Adaspe, I think, Idaspe. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyway, that's a heads up for Monday's show. And I guess it's sort of uppermost in my head. I'm very, very excited that we landed that interview opportunity. Okay, that said, Another sort of more personal note, yesterday, of course, was Yom Kippur, the holiest Jewish holiday. And I had an experience, sort of a sad experience of taking my mom to the synagogue that was the synagogue of my childhood. And the difference in it from the 50s and 60s is just astonishing and not good. It's so odd that as Green Bay's population doubled, when I was growing up, it was about 50,000 people lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's a little over 100,000 now. But when it was just 50,000, there was it felt like a substantial Jewish community. I mean, when I, as a child, went for Yom Kippur services, there were so many people in the synagogue that, you know, the sliding doors to the community hall had to be opened. And so you had people from the front of the building to the back, you know, sort of like probably what happens at Easter and Christmas in churches as well, where the pews might be sparsely populated on a normal Sunday, and then for the big holidays, you know, it's standing room only. And we left a little late, and I said to my mother, "Where are we going to park? The parking lot will be full." She said, "Oh, no, it won't." And it's a small parking lot. And man, it wasn't full at all. And we easily pulled in. There's like next to nobody left. There, it is. I walked into this beautiful sanctuary where I was bat mitzvahed, where I have so many memories. And there were just a handful of old people. And I mean old. I ended up sitting in a row with my mom next to me, 100 years old. Marilyn Weinstein, who came in even later than us, and I flagged her over. And she came in and she said, "I had trouble getting out of my house because it's my birthday and everybody was calling all the time." I said, "Well, happy birthday." She said, "I'm 98. So, and at the end of the row was another wondrous woman who's 96. I got to tell you, with all these old gals, you wouldn't know it. Pretty amazing. But I looked around and I thought at one point this old guy came up and he lifted up the Torah, the scrolls. Is my mic better now? I'm told that there's a popping sound. No, I think the popping sound you're hearing is my dog, who has he's chewing on a plastic bottle. My guess is that's what it is, but he's stopped now, so I'm hoping that'll be the end of it. But I don't know. At one point, this old man lifted up the Torah, and he was such a nice, I thought, who's that nice-looking old man? I wonder who that is. And then the rabbi called him by name, and I thought, oh, my God. He was a kid. I knew as a kid, and he was younger than me. I thought, my God, that's Avi Burke. Jesus. It was just, the whole thing was mind-blowing. I'm sorry, mind-blowing. The other mind-blowing thing is in that sparse, there couldn't have been more than 35 people there, where there would have been hundreds and hundreds. 35 people, and 4 of them were black. Now, I can assure you, when I was growing up, there were no black Jews in Green Bay. There were no blacks in Green Bay, and now there's black Jews. I was blown away by that. There was a young couple who had their adorable little daughter who was so incredibly well behaved. She was the only. Man, she brought the average age down, maybe to 91. It's just stark raving mind blowing. And when my mom and I approached the door after getting out of the car in the sparsely populated parking lot, we were let into the locked synagogue by a police officer who greeted us very warmly and then unlocked the door, and in we went, and then he locked it up again. And in the course of the service, the rabbi actually noted the officer, who I guess has been doing that duty for years, and he talked about how wonderful he's a detective, I think Mullen, he said, who's standing guard out there, God bless him, and he stands outside the totally locked up synagogue. And, I was thinking, I suppose some people would think, what, are they a bunch of paranoids? And, you can't say that because whatever. It was a very, to me, extremely unhappy experience. Mind-blowing. Margaret asks, is Blue licking the mic? Is my mic still sounding funny? I've got it where it usually is, and he's not chewing on anything at the moment. So anyways, that's where we are. Okay, so back, I just read something that was so disquieting right before the show, which is often the case because almost everything you read is disquieting these days. But the election here, the Senate election here, the loathsome incumbent Ron Johnson, who denies COVID, denies vaccines, denies January 6th. He's running against a guy named Mandela Barnes. We've talked about this before, who is black. No black. I don't think a black candidate has won a nation, a statewide office in Wisconsin. And he was doing okay in the polls. And because Johnson is such a loathsome character, the assumption is that Mandela Barnes had a good shot and is one of the candidates that could take a Republican seat. But apparently, in the last few weeks, things have been going the other way. There has been a barrage of messaging that is so blatantly racist. And, you're watching the news on your television and up they come. They take Mandela Barnes' face and they darken it, let somebody not realize this is a black man, will make him black. So they put Mandela Barnes in blackface and they juxtapose crime scenes with him. And like what they're doing with Fetterman, this is the way they're running against all Democrats, progressive Democrats, is by saying these guys want to let these horrible criminals out of jail. That's what Oz is doing in Fetterman in Pennsylvania. It's what Johnson is doing to Barnes here in Wisconsin. And I have to tell you, according to the latest polling, it's working. It's especially working here. And the Republicans are finally throwing tons of money. They see the movement in the polls. And I just got so depressed because I'd sort of been thinking, oh, Mandela Barnes is going to win. Fetterman's going to win. And now I'm not so sure of any of that. We're 1 month away. And I'm just terrified. The eve of that election, I'm going to. There ain't enough Xanax in the world to calm me down. Good God. So I'm just saying that that's unsettling. Roger writes, regarding the popping sound, if these are the radio days, I would guess you were too close to the mic. Words with hard consonants are popping. Okay. And they still are, huh? So I have no idea. I'm not doing anything any different than I ever do. The mic is pretty much where it always is. So please don't let this happen when Mark Rylance is on the show. That'll be embarrassing. I mean, I don't get embarrassed generally speaking, but I get annoyed. But I would be embarrassed. Just saying. Make sure it's plugged in tight, says Kevin. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, it's plugged in. It's plugged into my phone. Uh-huh. Do it again. It's plugged in. God damn it. And there's nothing else that plugs. Okay? Is there any difference now? Hello. Oops, that was me. This is upsetting. If there's no, if it isn't any better now, I don't know what to tell you. I have done everything I know how to do. The dog is not chewing anything. He's just keeping guard at the window. You know those fundraising emails that you get 700 million of? Hi, this is Joe Biden. This is Josh Shapiro. This is, help. We need money. Fetterman, God, he's it's just constant, right? Well, I don't respond to any of them. And now, of course, they're texting you as well. So if you text, I mean, your messages are, constantly from these campaigns. And they're always warning you of something dire like reality. Like Ron Johnson is leading in the polls. Barnes is falling behind. God, we're screwed. We need your money now if we're going to take him on, right? And what I read was a fascinating article about how that this started really with Howard Dean, if you'll recall, whose candidacy ended because he made a noise into a microphone, and that disqualified him. Those charming days of yore. And now, we have presidents who say, I grabbed him by the pussy, stuff like that, and and they get elected. But Howard Dean went, and that was the end. So yeah, things have changed. And Howard Dean now, even though he sort of started that small, send me $1, he started using, social media and mail in stuff to say, you don't need big money. A lot of us little people together can take on all these big money guys. And it worked. I mean, little small donors started having an impact. But the piece I read said, like so many things that start out as a movement to give the people power, well, it worked. It began as a wonderful kind of cause, but then the pros got at it, the professionals. They turned this kind of marketing and money raising into a business, and then the business became a racket. And that's what you need to keep in mind. It's pretty much a racket now. And if you think back to some of the campaigns in the past, you remember there was a woman running against Mitch McConnell last time he stood for re-election, which might have been, 2 years ago? I'm not sure, 2 years ago. Her name was, I'm blanking. And Amy something. And we got to know so much about her. I got stuff from her constantly, and she was going to take Mitch McConnell down. Well, of course, that kind of thing resonates. And so she ended up getting just tons and tons of money from all over the country, from Democrats who can't stand Mitch McConnell. And then he proceeded to just clobber the hell out of her. He won by double digits. She never had a chance. And everybody who sent their hard-earned dollars into her was throwing their money away. So you and me have to be a lot smarter about where we put our dollars. This kind of thing goes on all the time. There's a guy running against Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, who the hell doesn't want that bitch out? His name is Marcus Flowers. He's peppering all of us saying, give me the money and I'll get her out. He has already raised $10 million. And guess what? He has no chance of winning. Where could that $10 million go and do some good? Maybe right here in Wisconsin, making sure Ron Johnson doesn't get reelected. So it's just a heads up to be smarter about this stuff. Howard Dean himself says every one of these kinds of requests for money that come to him from candidates who he doesn't even know, and he doesn't know anything about the races, he just dumps them. He doesn't even open them. And that's what you have to do. Do I have a caller? Hello?
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
This is Phil Marcus, Lashana Tova.
Hi, Phil. Oh, Lashana Tova.
I wanted to comment on two things you said. First of all, the mic technique. I was taught a long time ago, speak across the front of the mic, not into the mic.
Right.
Because the letter P is explosive.
Explosive. Yes, it's plosive.
And that's why on some directional mics or omnidirectional, they have that round windscreen.
Yeah,
that
I got a
dissipates
windscreen.
The big. Oh, you're speaking with a windscreen now?
Yeah.
Well, you should be popping. You should
Not
pop
popping.
away. You should be not popping, right?
Yeah. Well. There's a windscreen on this mic.
Oh, okay.
Amazing. Yeah.
And you were talking about the shul in Green Bay. I grew up. I was bar mitzvah at, the old B'nai Israel in East Liberty, the round building.
Yes.
Of course, that's not a shul anymore.
No.
My grandparents and their parents, I suspect, went to that shul. That's where our family was. And now I think it's a school, or they're turning it into.
I don't even. Well, no, it was a school. I'm not sure it's still a school, but yeah, it's a big, beautiful building.
Beautiful,
and so
absolutely magnificent.
So that congregation went down like
that congregation is now over in. I guess it's a Cheswick address, and it's the consolidation of three congregations.
Wow.
And then when we moved to Squirrel Hill, my kids went to Tree of Life, of all places. And it's just symptomatic of not just Judaism, but all religions, Lynn. I mean, take a look at the Catholic diocese. They're consolidating and closing their parishes all over. And because these buildings, if for no other reason, these buildings are enormously expensive to maintain.
I can't imagine how this congregation maintains the one here. I can't imagine.
What is the building? Is it a big building, a physical plant?
Well, it's not as big as the one you're talking about that was, on Negley. It is it was a building that was built in like the early 50s, a nice brick building with, it's got a basement with classrooms and a second floor with a library and a big, big sanctuary and a meeting rooms. And it's lovely. It's just lovely and solid.
How many dues-paying families do you know?
How now?
Yeah,
dues-paying families. I can't imagine. It's maybe 30. I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe 30.
Well,
and as I said, the average age is 92.
That's where we are in the in the moment of time that we live. I mean,
really, yeah. It made me sad.
It made me sad listening to you.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
There's no rabbi there. This guy comes in from Milwaukee,
and
right. They can't support a rabbi.
They have renter rabbis now, and a lot of these rabbis are also
cantors as well. Yeah, and I thought, oh my God. And he came up to me and he said, "Wonderful to see you again." And I'm thinking, you never laid eyes on me before, but how would he know that? He probably is just, he doesn't even know what city he's in, probably.
Poor guy. He was being polite.
Yes, I know he was being very welcoming and kind. But it's the whole thing. I just wanted to cry. It's just like, that whole part of my childhood just gone. And I don't know. So there's that.
Okay, Lynn, well, enjoy your trip home.
10 hours. Okay.
Okay,
good luck.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Margaret says, but you have wonderful memories too. Yeah, I definitely, I do. But seeing all those, oh my God, those old people. Yeah. And I was one of them. I mean, I'd be considered, I'm an old person. But that's one of the things that, my mom screws me up because she's still in my life. And when you got your mom there and she's with it just makes you think you're not as old as you I guess you are. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I'm moving on. I did see this quote from Steve Schmidt, and it's about the upcoming election, and he says it as clearly as it can be said. The consequences of this election. He says this election is a test. It's a test for a free people. It's pass, fail. Period. We're either going to save our democracy in 1 month, or we're going to see it go down. And I do think that that's not overstating the case. I know it's a bummer, but there's no sense in being, a delusional optimist or something. Somebody wrote a piece, Peter Coy is his name, about humility. And humility is something that I've always found strange and hard to pin down. Like, one of the things I have noticed and made fun of is that now, anytime somebody gets an award, almost every one of them says the same thing. I mean, whether it's a huge thing like the Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel or just recognition at some local event, what do they say? I'm so humbled. I am so humbled. And that always cracks me up because that's not true. It is never true. At that very moment, whoever is saying, I'm so humbled, is feeling quite the opposite. Come on. And that's not saying anything bad. They understandably are feeling quite the opposite. They're feeling pride, as they should. You get singled out and given this award, and you feel proud. But they get up and say, I'm so humbled. And it shows how the idea of humility is so odd. And Peter Coy points out that the Scottish philosopher back in the day, David Hume, made fun of humility, the very concept of it being a virtue. And he put it with all what he called all the other monkish ideas of virtue, like celibacy and self-denial and fasting and solitude and all that, and humility is in there. And he says they serve, these things like humility serve no purpose. They neither advance a person's fortune in the world nor render the person a more valuable member of society. He says nobody wants to be around. It's people like this are not fun to be around, essentially, is what he's saying. You want to be around somebody who, is not into intimacy and is constantly self-flagellating and fasting and being penitent and celibate. He says, why is this a virtue? And yet we are taught in all the religions, Christianity, Judaism, all of them teach that humility is a virtue. I mean, the holiday I just came off of is full of self-recrimination and being humbled. It's all about that. And he goes on to say this. He says humility is a tricky virtue to talk about. He says if you say you're not humble, you're probably telling the truth, right? On the other hand, if you say you are humble, you're probably not, because people who are humble don't go around bragging about being humble, right? So the minute you say I'm humbled, you're not. Bull. And then he says, and think of this paradox, that to be humble is seen as good. But if you're humbled, that's bad. Oh, they were, your team loses, you were humbled. So it's clear that we humans don't have a fix on this, whatever it is, humility, this thing called humility. But this has always been something that just drives me nuts about, and now I hope you'll note it when somebody is accepting an award. Just watch how many times they start by saying, I'm humbled. It shows they have no sense at all of what they're saying, because they're not. It's not. Now, maybe you're thinking, oh, but I really know a humble, a true person of humility. I don't know. Here's another thing. I have been watching a lot of the news about, the horrific destruction of the hurricane. But God in heaven, when will we stop talking about rebuilding? I have to tell you, I don't want tax dollars. I don't want my tax dollars to be wasted going to rebuild structures and infrastructure on a coastline that will be inundated again and destroyed again. If we're unwilling to acknowledge that those areas, by virtue of climate change, are now clearly in an endangered state, exceedingly vulnerable, and for us to, as taxpayers, continue to foot the bill for what is absolutely irresponsible development or redevelopment. If an area is known to be prone to flooding or to be flattened by hurricanes, why should we continue throwing federal aid, state aid at rebuilding them so they can be flattened again? I'm asking. Currently, there are hardly any strings attached to rebuilding funds after something like the hurricane. And yet we just continue acting like it's a once in a million year event. And yes, we'll get these people back up on their feet and we'll put them right back where they were. It's insane. Now, some of it is because if you don't rebuild people's homes, you lose that tax base. Each home represents a taxpayer. And so communities are often reluctant to give up any of that real estate, which provides them with tax dollars. And in places like Florida, where beachfront property is the most expensive, the most sought after, and consequently brings in the most tax dollars, the incentive for Florida to keep saying to somebody, oh yeah, let's help you there, let's help you rebuild. And a geologist that was interviewed for this piece says that we just keep doing this over and over and over, and he calls it an ecological Ponzi scheme. Yeah. And Peter Coy writes that if state and local governments won't put a stop to this senseless, stupid, wasteful rebuilding, then it's probably up to the federal government, God help us, to somehow put the brakes on some types of coastal development. because this is such a waste of our tax dollars. Such a waste. So it's something after every hurricane I think about. I just want to say, God. I also want to say, oh, God, Elon Musk, what a loathsome character, and he's going to buy Twitter. It's just another nail in the coffin. He'll let Trump back on. He'll let every hater on. The haters will have a field day. They can't wait. They can't wait till Musk takes it over. And Musk loves the idea because he needs, I guess he feels a need to make money. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine being as rich as he is and to still be motivated by making money? Why? Why? Well, we know why. Greed. It's greed. He wants it all. He wants more than anybody else, and he wants it all. And he has no value system. None. The only value he knows is monetary value. He's a despicable human being. And, you know, Twitter's not a wondrous thing as it is. I mean, it's already helping to spread misinformation and lies, but he is going to take it to another level. And God help us. I haven't said anything lately about the Allegheny County Jail, but my God. How do we tolerate it? Why do we tolerate it? Do you know more people die in that jail than in, I think, almost any other jail in the country? It's like and the people who are dying in there are not convicted of anything. They're just there because they're poor and awaiting trial. They couldn't post bail. They go in and they come out in a body bag. Somebody wrote a letter to the PG today, a guy named John Kenstowitz, and he said, my chances of staying alive would be better at Guantanamo, where 9 people have died since it opened in 2002 after 9/11. You know how many people have died in the Allegheny County Jail in the last 2 years? 2020 to 2022? 13. And I'm not sure if anyone's died yet today. It is beyond outrageous. Much larger jails. Like in Philly. You think they don't have a bigger jail in Philadelphia? They don't have anywhere near this kind of death going on in their jail. What is it? Oh, well, there must be something about the people that are coming into the Allegheny County Jail that is different from all other people all over the country. They just must be sicker. I don't know. This cannot be anything other than total incompetence, malfeasance, and I would argue potentially criminal conduct. Why is it so hard to maintain? I mean, they've done to be humane. Unbelievable. No, Blue. No. Okay, just a few other things. Then I'll. Oh, I think I have another dog at the door. Here, let me just. I'm sorry, guys. Don't worry, I'll be back in my own home on Monday, and we'll have just the usual stuff. Is there another dog out here? No. Oh, there's a dog called my son. Okay, get him out of here then, Sam. I'm on doing the show. Okay, goodbye. My God. Surrounded by idiots. Somebody pointed something out that I think is really important. And I think we know it, but don't necessarily note it. So I'm going to note it. When you think of the South, and I'm always filled with animus when I think of the South, because I have not forgiven the South for slavery and the Civil War and all that, and then the veneration of the wondrous legacy of the great South. But it's been pointed out that the South is all over this country now. The South, in many ways, won. Our culture has been Southified. You are as likely to find rebel flags on pickup trucks and hanging somewhere in states that were in the Union. And this article pointed out that, like a state like Pennsylvania, in which 27,000 Pennsylvanians died fighting the South, you have a huge cohort, and maybe even a majority, of people who identify with all those Southern virtues, who have an affinity for what the Confederacy stood for. And the writer suggests that, it used to be like, say, you drove from, like where I am, Green Bay, Wisconsin. You drove north and you drove down south. You would come upon, different accents, different cultures, and there would be a different kind of, the South was very much what it was. It's not true. The South is everywhere now. And it's because of cultural, homogeneity. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Country music, the popularity of NASCAR. And when you look at the ideas held by people in this country, there are as many people living in the North who hold the ideas that you would place in the South. And so we need to remember that. We are living, if you're living in Pittsburgh, man, you are living in, it's no different than if you were living in Mississippi. Sorry. It's no different. All these states whose ancestors died in the fight against the South, their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, now venerate that enemy. So when we speak of the South, you're speaking of the United States. Pretty much. Hey, I understand there's been an arrest in the Kennywood Park shooting. And I guess they're announcing the suspect and everything in a few minutes, just in case that's something that is like really in your head is an interesting topic. Geez. Okay. There's so many things to. Barbara sends me this. More Americans are moving into hurricane zones. Yeah, because they're fucking idiots. Idiots. They're moving into hurricane zones. They're moving into drought zones, wildfire zones. What is with people? What is with their unbelievable sense of that somehow things, that it won't affect them, that they don't pay attention, they don't see how stupid it is. Barbara sent me this. Officials in Charleston, South Carolina, they know that climate change poses an existential threat to them. So what are they doing? They are working on plans to build a $1 billion plus wall. Yeah, we love walls. They keep out brown people. Walls keep out the ocean. And they're going to build a wall so they will protect all those beautiful homes. But they're also thinking of rezoning, so they end development in areas most prone to flooding. But while they're doing that, the same city fathers have okayed plans for more than 9,000 acres of additional residential and commercial development. And half of all that would be located in a floodplain. We are idiots. And it says here that what's happening in Charleston is happening all over the Southeast. Cities and counties are seeing influx of Americans who want to live in these wonderful places. They've got rapid development. They're building places left, right, and center, and very real estate vulnerable to flooding, hurricanes, rising sea levels. And humans think they're smart. I throw up my hands. I just do. Just surrounded by idiots. Idiots. I don't know if you saw this unbelievable story about a police officer in the Los Angeles Police Department who died in a training exercise. He's dead and buried. This happened way earlier in the year. But now, his family and a lawyer for his family and a lot of journalists are saying, you know, we think his fellow officers murdered him. Imagine that. The officer, who's now dead, had been assigned to investigate a gang rape. Okay, alleged gang rape by 4 other Los Angeles Police Department officers last year. Well, he was investigating his fellow officers, and in this strange training session, he ended up supposedly falling and dying, when the extent of his injuries were such that there is no way a fall would have damaged his internal organs. He had multiple neck fractures. Anyway, the people who looked at his body, collapsed lung, broken ribs, liver damage, spinal cord injuries. A nurse and a paramedic that first dealt with him said he just looked like somebody who had been severely beaten. And I don't know if you've ever read about the Los Angeles Police Department, but oh my God. There are gangs in the police department. There are gangs. They're called shadow gangs. It doesn't matter. They're gangs within the police department. And they, in many ways, intimidate any officer who tries to do the right thing. A lot of people would say the gangs control the police there. In fact, the current sheriff picked as his chief of staff a man who has admitted he did belong to the Grim Reapers, one of the gangs within the county sheriff's department. So there is now you wouldn't want to be the officer assigned to trying to ascertain whether this officer who was trying to ascertain if there'd been a gang rape by 4 of the other officers was himself now brutally killed. I mean, would you want to be that officer? And that's how intimidation and gangs do what they do and maintain their power. Talking to my son about it, and I said, unbelievable. And he looked at me like, how naive are you? It's totally believable. And I don't know if within like Pittsburgh's police department there are definable gangs, but there could well be. There could well be. Extraordinary. All righty, I think I'm done. I'll next talk to you on Monday. I hope everything goes smoothly. I drive back in one piece, and I hope we will, in fact, have this amazing couple, Claire Van Kampen and Mark Rylance, on as our guests that Monday, the 10th. Okay, so have a good weekend, and God, I don't know, don't be humble, okay, and go out and work to save our democracy. I don't know what you're going to do, but think of something. Please. All right. Sorry for the just general popping and confusion of this show. It'll be good to be back where I'm used to doing it. It's been a little strange. Okay, toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.